took a shit off of a cliff?
Oh, Danny, you can't say it publicly like that. Yeah, I did.
How was that? Was that like cathartic?
Yeah,
or?
life-changing, bro. No,
life-changing.
I wouldn't say life-changing. That's a hyperbole. I would say it was cool in that I didn't think I'd ever do that.
Yeah.
It was cool for the moment. It was more like I went on a trip, a very long trip, where for the first stint of it, I was camping in Utah, solo camping in Utah, and at one point I climbed a mountain, and I was just so overwhelmed and happy that I had completed this hike that I felt like I needed to cap it off in some way because it really was very taxing. It was very difficult. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. So I wanted to cap it off by doing something that would like really be a good end to the story. And so, yeah, I like nuzzled up close to the edge of a cliff, and I in the shit.
Did you ever feel like at any moment you could slip, fall down, lose your life simply because you were pooping?
No.
Oh,
it was more like a how do I say this with like not too much disgusting detail. It was more like a whenever it exited.
Yeah.
It was more rolling down before it fell, rather than I was still holding onto a branch.
What I'm picturing is
like an animated,
this gigantic cliff, you know,
like a Grinch style cliff.
Exactly, precisely.
Right. And that's not the case. No,
okay.
It was absolutely a cliff.
Yeah,
and if I was to fall, then that would be probably.
But more
death.
of like an incline as opposed to.
But there was
definitely
yes, yeah. There was a way that I could have caught myself if things went south, literally south.
Yeah.
So, but I was holding onto a branch at the time. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. And that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Congratulations.
I don't know if I want to be thinking about cookies.
Yeah, but congrats. That's wonderful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was exactly what the doctor ordered.
Uh-huh.
And how was not doing that?
I'm jealous. It feels like, you know, I still have shit left to do, and so that's something.
The next cruise, that'll be the bucket list item.
We'll see.
You probably get taken off the cruise.
Probably
arrested.
Somewhere on the poop deck, you know.
Nice. I'm gonna give you a camera. It's a little bit of camera love with that fist bump.
Let's talk about Jordan Peele's newest film.
Let's do it.
Came out in the year of our Lord 2022, starring Daniel Kaluuya and Keke Palmer. Nope. It's a mystery, horror, sci-fi, thriller, suspenseful film. And it's largely about an unidentified flying object and takes place in Agua Dulce in California on this horse farm. And essentially people, you know, a large part of the film trying to figure out what the heck is going on, and eventually they do. And so it boils down to this sort of like
Can we
like
just
borderline
safely say
heist film towards the end, which is
that
fantastic.
there's going to be a shit ton of spoilers in this episode?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So if you haven't watched it, then that's just a
yeah, that's
given.
on you. That's on you, Chief.
Great. Okay.
But what I've grown to enjoy, right, is that when we watch this film, it's still in theaters presently, even while we are recording.
Yeah.
Right? So, Mac, I want you to actually tell me about your theater experience. Were there a lot of people in the theater? Did you watch it when it first came out?
So I was
interesting?
actually in LA whenever I saw it, and I saw actually the premiere.
Wow.
Not like the one with the celebrities, but I saw the premiere at a downtown LA I might have been AMC. I'm not entirely sure.
Sure.
But yeah, it was and it was cool because it was a room full of people that
are excited for the film. I imagine.
Extremely excited. Yeah, because I mean, it being the premiere, it was like, I think it viewed at like 11 p.m. or something crazy like that.
Wow.
Like it started very, very late because it was the day before that it was like it was its release date. And yeah, it was fun. It was a huge theater, and I really liked being able to see it with that many people because and same with Us and Get Out both. And I'm really glad that we talked about those in past episodes because now we can kind of use those as reference points. Like that was kind of the purpose of us doing that. So in that, I think just like the others, all of the Jordan Peele movies were heavily benefited by viewing them with full audiences, and making it like more of a community experience.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's a Jordan Peele thing. I'm not sure if that is a horror movie or thriller movie type thing that it's easier to see with a whole audience. I'm not sure if that's just a movie thing. If all movies need to be viewed like that, I don't know.
I think it's a sort of community thing, right?
Yeah.
If let's look at it in this context, right? At least for you and I, where we come from a theater background and before that a sports background, right?
Yeah.
And those are two atmospheres that really thrive on this sense of community, right? Sports in terms of fans, right? Fans inside of a stadium or an arena, and then with theater, right? Like when you're an actor, when you're performing on stage, so much of what's happening, more so than you would think, is being fed on from the audience, right? You know, a lot of laughs or just a lot of exciting gasps or sounds. Like you, as an actor, you're feeding off of that actively, right? You're actively listening to that the whole time. And so I think a large part, of course, to a movie's enjoyment is that if you have some sort of communal experience, then you get to really enjoy it, right? Like this is a very specific example, but the handshake in Predator, right? Where Arnold Schwarzenegger and
so
Carl
right.
Weathers duke it out with their gigantic biceps. It's the best.
I still have that video.
The best shot in film history ever.
Yeah.
There, I said it. Sizzle serve. It's the best shot in film history ever, but what makes that shot better is the communal experience of everybody in the room being like, yeah. But if you're watching a movie by yourself, you'd be like, oh, that's funny, but it lands differently. And so that's very enriching and very cool. And that's great to hear that there was a strong communal aspect while watching this film. Did you get the sense that everybody there was enjoying it as well?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Everyone that I saw it with and everyone that was in the theater was really invested, was very invested. To a point where, as per usual, they were calling out things and saying things at the screen. And it was like kind of a fun little thing. Lots of people saying the word nope, but like unintentionally. It wasn't like to be corny or anything. Like it was just because that's what you say in that in that type of movie.
Yeah. And it's what the characters say too.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Well, I mean, there's a reason it's called Nope. Now, did you have a similar experience? Did you have a similar community type experience?
There was maybe like 8 other people in the theater. I watched it yesterday from this moment of recording.
Now, what was that like, and were those people actively involved, or was it?
I don't think they were actively involved. I was the only one in the audience where like there were a couple of lines throughout the film that got a few chuckles out of me. It was something, and like one of them was like very small, of Keke Palmer just saying, "Oh damn," and that just got a chuckle out of me. And I think I was the only person in the theater at all that ever laughed at the film. Period.
Yeah.
Because I think at that point, the people who have wanted to see the film already saw the film.
That's
and mind
so
you,
interesting.
This was 5 p.m. on a Thursday.
Yeah.
Like it's a weird time
because
to go to see a film.
Like the group that I went to see it with, we still like quote the movie regularly.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you got like a couple of lines that you were like, okay, sure, but like we still. Like the people that I saw it with are regularly like 5 stars, Angels, 5 stars.
Exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, and that's a hilarious line, but that line doesn't land with me the same way. And I think partially because I don't have that community aspect. So you probably have a much more glowing review of this film than I do.
I would say overall, yeah.
So, but let's get into that. So let's just, first of all, we shouldn't, but we will. Who cares? Compare it to Get Out and Us.
Yeah.
Is this better than Get Out? Is this better than Us?
Oh, that's tough.
Because it's tricky, and they're very different films. This is a very different film, and
I would say this is more
much
different
less of
than
a horror film.
the other two.
Yeah, this is much less of a horror film, I would say. Much more of thriller, mystery, sci-fi film. More so in that department.
I'd say so.
But I think the navigation of it is still wonderful, and it's once again like it's part of it is like it's a movie. Same thing with Us, right? It's movies that recall to past times, right? So this movie reminds me a little bit of like sci-fi films from like the 50s and 60s, a lot of them being about aliens, and like a little bit of Western.
Intentional.
Yeah, of course. And a little bit of Western in there too, right? And then you have Us being a lot more like pretty traditional horror film, which really had its heyday in the 90s, probably 90s-ish. Yeah, give or take. But like it has Jordan Peele's own spin on it, and also having a predominantly or starring a black cast or black actors. And so it makes you realize, why hasn't there been a film quite like this, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, like, black individuals being cast of those kind of roles, right? Actually being prominent characters,
Well,
being the protagonist.
And I think there was this theme throughout every inch of the movie of taking the stereotype or taking what we know to be the popular version of this thing and then kind of intentionally breaking the rules of it, or breaking the mold of it. I mean, the most obvious example being the fact that it is a UFO movie about a UFO that looks like the regular flying saucer UFO, but that's the actual animal, not the ship. The second that happens, from that moment on, and also in the casting, like you said, every single choice is permeated by this. Okay, well, there has to be a twist to it. It's not going to be as normal as, you know, as it lets on.
But then it also enhances the quality of this film, and that it's not like Us is not just another horror film. It's this movie. It's not just another sci-fi film.
Mm-hmm.
It does a little bit more to make it that much more enriching, special, and worth watching.
And on that, and we're probably going to have to spend most of the second half of this second segment talking about, you know, what is the purpose of this film? What is it trying to say? Because I think that conversation is a very fruitful one.
Yeah.
But on that, I think that the reason that, going back to your original question of comparing it to Get Out and Us, I think I like this one a little bit more in terms of just personal satisfaction, simply because Get Out and Us had very clear and vivid social commentary.
Yeah.
And it was pretty freaking on the nose with what it was trying to say with both of those.
Particularly Get Out.
Get Out.
And that's
Us,
not even like
less so, but still like definitely a social commentary. Prominent.
Right. The themes are prominent in those films.
With Nope, what I love so much about it is that I feel like Jordan Peele's earned enough permission. He's like earned his clout enough to the point where we implicitly trust him.
Yeah.
If this would have been his first movie, he probably wouldn't have blown up in the way that he did with Get Out.
No, I don't think so.
I think that he could take a lot more risks with this movie, like he couldn't in Get Out and Us, because he has that audience buy-in of, well, we all love Jordan Peele as a culture collectively now.
Yeah.
In this director role and as a writer because of Get Out and Us, so we trust that whatever he makes, even if we don't understand it at first, there must be a, you know,
there's something to it, right?
Yeah.
There's something, there's meat to this bone.
Right. So like if this was the first movie that he came out with and I didn't understand whenever I left the theater, I would think that doesn't make any sense.
Well, this wouldn't blow, you know, like audience reception and expectation out of the water, much like Get Out, right? Well, like what makes Get Out interesting is that it's a very good movie, no doubt, but like there wasn't a movie like it before.
Right.
There are movies akin to Nope before. It's just it hasn't been done in this way.
Right. And we know going in that he's going to break those expectations because and he's going to, you know,
and do something interesting with it.
But even more so, and I think maybe even more importantly, is that whenever I'm watching Nope, if there's something I don't understand, I assume that it's my fault, not his.
Yeah.
And so whenever I left the theater, there were definitely moments or like little questions that I still had that I was like, oh, I'm not really sure if I understand this yet. And my instant thought was, oh, well, like I need to watch it again. Or I need to find like a review of this, rather than, you know, not trusting him and being like, okay, well, it just wouldn't make sense.
Let's get into specifics of that. What
Please.
were there so what were the specific things that you, when you finished the film, were left questioning about perhaps the inclusion of or the implementation of? Were there things in particular that...
In terms of the actual plot, I totally hit this mic just now.
Okay, well, I mean, that's a penalty for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think in terms of plot, I didn't have many questions. They intentionally kept the story fairly simple, isolated, not many characters.
Yeah.
With very clear goals and you know, arcs and whatnot. So that it wasn't as much that. It was more like, why this story? What was he trying to say? What was the message? Like, what is this about, really?
Yeah.
Because they never, well, like they kind of do, but they don't go out of their way to say it outright.
Yeah.
There is definitely an interpretive quality the to the message of this movie.
I think I'm with you there for the most part. So when I finished the film, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Right,
Yeah.
I really liked this.
In terms
film.
of just like the experience, it was a fun time.
And for me personally, I like this film more than Us. Right, and
Okay.
that's just personal preference.
Yeah.
And I think this
Us
movie
was
just
scarier.
feels better to watch.
Yes,
compared
yes,
to
yes,
Us,
yes.
right? Like Us is that is a horror film, and I
Yeah.
enjoy mystery sci-fi more than horror. That's
Easy
it.
as that, absolutely.
Yeah, it's as easy as that.
Yeah. I
But,
would say I felt more, and I was like way more viscerally attached to Us in like a body way.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Us
my
is-
heart was pounding.
yes.
Whereas Nope, I was watching a little more passively, and
Yeah.
I was just kind of smiling the whole time.
For sure, for
Sorry,
sure.
go ahead.
Well, and of course, this movie was written, as Jordan Peele stated, to be much more of a spectacle, right? And due to the concern of the decline of the attendance of movie theaters.
We need to talk about that word, but go ahead.
We will get into that word. But right when I finished the film, I was confused a little bit. And I'm no longer confused, but I still have this as a bit of a qualm about the implementation and inclusion of this particular arc that revolves around the chimp.
Yep.
Gordy.
Yep.
So at
agree.
first I was like, one of the supporting characters, played by, I believe I may get his last name wrong, but Stephen Ewan, who plays Ricky Jupe Park, and he's actively trying to hold on to the fame from when he was a kid, right? Opens a little attraction park that is based off of a character that he played when he was 10, right? And so, but he was on this sitcom, and a balloon popped, and a chimpanzee was there, and the chimpanzee went crazy, killed some of the cast, and I think some of the people in the audience as well, perhaps. And he survives the entire thing. But that felt so out of place and compared to the rest of the plot that it explains his character and his motivations and his objectives and his actions, but it doesn't work and it doesn't flow that well when he is not a protagonist or an antagonist.
I think though, I mean, there's a much more simple and upsetting explanation to why that was there, but I think it does come back to what the movie is about.
I agree. So it works thematically.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should have said that too.
Yeah.
It works thematically. I have found the theme to be the exploitation of spectacles. Right. And
Yes.
and the act and the search and the want and desire of exploiting said spectacles.
Yeah.
And so you have this particular character exploiting the spectacle. And because of this, even through this horrifying, terrifying incident that he probably views as some sort of, self-realized miracle, something or other,
Yeah.
that he is trying to exploit that spectacle by having it be this sort of hidden thing where he'll, do interviews, or he'll be invited to this family's house for $50,000 because he survived the chimpanzee incident.
But the only reason that he survived the chimpanzee survived Gordy is because he was the only one in the room that wasn't exploiting the spectacle. Everyone else there was oh, it's him. And notice that he was not swept away by the industry yet. Whenever the laugh thing came on, everyone in the audience laughed. All the actors were their sitcom, whatever, and he was forgetting lines. He was the only one that hadn't been swept away by the industry
That's an
yet.
excellent point. I didn't even
That
notice
was
that.
actually the funny enough. My qualms with Gordy and me thinking back to all those moments was what led me to, the movie's about spectacle. That was actually how I got to the theme.
Gotcha.
Which is, I think, maybe the reason why I'm a little more forgiving towards it, but I do have a lot of qualms with it.
But I
agree.
will
agree.
say, and some of the visual storytelling still works really, really well. For example, when he's hiding under the table and the tablecloth is hanging over the table just a little bit, and it's that tablecloth that is interrupting the eye lines between Gordy and Ricky.
Right.
I understood that, Gordy thinks that he can't, either he can't reach through properly, or it's that, Ricky is not looking into Gordy's eyes because of the tablecloth. Precisely.
Right.
I don't know. It's very interesting, but once again, plot pacing-wise, it's out of place. Even though it works perfectly thematically, it's hard for me to say it works pacing wise in the story of the film, right? Especially when at the end of the day, Ricky just feels like a pretty irrelevant character, right?
I agree.
Like, even though, like, structurally he fills a pretty big role because of, like, his little park and the horses that he's bought to feed to Jean Jacket, spoiler. But and so, like, like, beat by beat wise is important, but at the same time, on the same token, I could not help but feel like that was not what I really took away from the film, this particular character, when, even though a lot of screen time and a lot of just time generally was devoted to explaining and building this character.
Right. I think that they needed to either include far more of the Gordy storyline, or even just the Ricky storyline, or not.
Have Ricky be a more prominent character.
It was such an awkward amount of time where I didn't know how invested I should be, and I ended up getting more invested than I should have been because it was so little payoff and so little like that was truly contributed.
And what that does also is that it hurts the rest of your cast, right? And so it hurts the and when I say hurt, I mean, like, it's literally less time devoted to the rest of your cast. So then you have this beautiful relationship between OJ and Emerald, played by Kaluuya and Keke Palmer, respectively, and wonderful relationship explored beautifully, right? Keke Palmer, every time she was on screen, electric. But then you have a character, Angel, played by Brandon Perea, and he's probably, like, third in line of being the most important character in this film, but it doesn't, and I'm able to say that he is, but at the same time, doesn't feel like a lot of time is devoted to him. He feels kind of like a sidecar.
Yeah.
Throughout the entire film. Actually, no.
He's
this character is a sidecar.
100%. Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that was meant to be the case in some capacity. So it really lends OJ and Emerald to shine character wise. But it was one of those things that, like, I'm not sure if all of those side characters were explored in such a way that was efficiently and the best done. And mind you, the film's not about those characters, but they lacked being fleshed out.
I think that excellent points, by the way. I think that Brandon Perea's character, remind me his name again?
Angel.
Angel, yes. I think that Angel is he kind of reminds me of, like, a classical, like, Shakespearean fool in a way, in that he comes off as and reads as an idiot, and, like, that's kind of the humor of him, is that he's kind of dumb, but he accidentally has some of the most profound and some of the, like, more thematic lines throughout that really drive a lot of points home. So I think that might have been his function, but you should never be thinking about a character's function whenever you're trying to emotionally attach yourself.
Yeah.
Like, as a writer, that's important, but it's not necessarily what you should be thinking about whenever you're trying to buy
as a viewer, right? As a viewer, you don't want to be looking at characters as pieces of a puzzle.
I should never be thinking this character's there because blah 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 blah. I should just be thinking I want to know what happens with this character
and how this character participates in the story, and, like, and what the story should be enhanced by this character, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the story only working because of this character. I don't know. I haven't really fleshed out this take. I will need to think about this.
But I think a good example is whenever we were talking about theme after we saw the movie. One of the things that whenever we started really, like, fleshing it out and being like, okay, so what is this movie about really? And we got to the whole spectacle thing, and exploiting spectacle and whatnot. And then I realized, it kind of dawned on me, oh, wait a second, I was really confused why that dinner scene was in the movie with the lead's brother and sister and the cinematographer and Angel.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, like, why was that there. Like whenever they're at the
I
house.
forgot that scene was there until you mentioned it.
Exactly. It's a forgettable scene, and it's just kind of there, and you're like, I don't really know why we need this, and then we move on really quickly. It's a short one. I think that's very subtly one of the most important thematically scenes in the movie.
Go on.
Because they have a moment where they because the entire time they're like, we need to prove that this alien exists because no one's going to believe us.
Right.
And that's why they do it, which is a noble cause at first. And then they start talking about the money, and they start talking about the artistic
fame,
value and the fame, and they start talking, and the cinematographer starts talking about, like, I'm going to go down as like one of the best cinematographers in history. And then Angel, there's like a pause, and he says, are we doing this for the right reasons? And they all kind of go, yeah. And then they just move on because, like, they had lost their ways. And I think that whenever you really think about what that scene was, you go, oh man, that's probably the most direct comment that they make on the film industry and on the entertainment industry as a whole, is like, you get into it for the right reasons, and it's made for like honest and pure and interesting reasons, but all of those are lost when compared to money or fame or I'm going to be the best,
because it's so easy to be distracted by those things. Super easy.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that.
You know what I mean, though? But there are a lot of little things that they said throughout the movie that actually make a lot of sense. Like, thinking back to them, probably the most direct one, the most obvious one, that I'm glad they put near the end of the movie, because I think it was a last-ditch effort, as if to say, if you don't understand what this movie is about yet, this is the most clear we can make it with the TMZ reporter.
Yeah.
It's like that's as in your face as you can possibly get with the themes in terms of, like, the mirror helmet and him trying to get the shot and all of it, you know? I think that there's definitely a lot to be said about theme, and it all becomes so clear after the fact whenever you start, like, reminiscing on it.
Yeah.
And especially with the Gordy stuff, like what I was talking about with the like Steven Yeun was which is just how I've heard people pronounce it. I have no idea if that's correct, but that just a little disclaimer. That's just what I've heard. Is that with his character and with the Gordy stuff and whatnot, that the more you start thinking about the way it contributes to theme and every individual moment that you got with that aside, it does make a little bit more sense. And you're like, okay, yeah, I'm willing to forgive a little bit more because it's so direct. And I don't think that, getting back to my very first point, I don't think that Jordan Peele could have succeeded in doing that his first time around. I don't think people would have trusted the movie enough, because it takes a lot of trust and a lot of faith
to know that thematically the movie is
all going to line up.
Yeah.
To know that there is a reason for every single moment to be in
and
that
not
movie.
to just assume that it's just going to be some sort of romp.
Yeah, because it does feel rompy, a lot of it. It does feel fun. It does feel like it's there for the adventure quality.
Yeah, and mysterious as all hell.
But it's but to know after the fact that there was purpose reminds me why I have always trusted and loved Jordan Peele so much. And I'm such an apologist, and probably, like, to a fault. Really to a fault, to be honest. I like him way more than I should. But anyways, I would like to get into more of the Gordy backstory and just talk more about Nope with you whenever we get back.
Sure.
Okay, and we're rolling. We're getting into this motherfucker. So I know that we're not talking about Severance, but there's this moment in Severance where John Turturro. Do you know who John Turturro is? The actor?
Yeah.
He's in it, and he's, like, very straight-laced the entire time and talks very straight-laced the entire time. And then at one point, he gets mad at somebody. I'm not going to spoil anything, but he just says, "You smug motherfucker," just like that. And I think about it because I've never heard someone say it with A's after the CK.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Motherfucker, like he did.
Well, and so
I say it all the time
breathy
now.
with it, you know?
You smug motherfucker. Yeah, I think about it all the time. Anyways, Gordy. So the reason that I wanted to get back around to Gordy is because that actually was kind of one of the impetuses, if you will, of making the movie. One of the inspirational pieces. I don't know if you know much about this, but the Gordy piece of the story is based off of something that actually happened. Not a film, not a TV project, but in the early 2000s, there was a woman that she had a chimpanzee that was kind of like her pet, I suppose. Like she treated like her son.
Yeah.
That like kind of took the place of her dead son. And so she was tending for this chimpanzee, treating it like family. Like the chimpanzee would like drink with them and would like hang out with them and like was just one of the gang.
Yeah.
A friend of hers was watching the chimpanzee. And the chimpanzee started getting kind of violent, and so the lady left, was like, "I'm getting the hell out of here."
Yeah.
Called the owner. The owner went and tried to calm the chimpanzee down and used an Elmo toy, but they're saying, assuming because it was like furry, the Elmo toy was, the
Elmo was competition.
No, actually, like the chimpanzee got territorial, and was like mad that the woman, although it was his mother, the woman was touching his toy, or maybe like his child.
Even though Elmo was saying, "Touch me, Elmo." Yeah.
Oh, nice! Wow! Harken back so many memories from that one. Thank you, Danny. That the chimpanzee started going absolutely buck wild on this lady, right?
Yeah.
And sent her to the ER, and she barely made it out alive. Now, what's so interesting about it is that whenever you find pictures or videos of this woman, her first time out in public, because this was like a international story that was like this really big deal, and her first time out in public was on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And there are a bunch of reports since then about how the Oprah Winfrey Show actually very subtly pressured her into like revealing her face and like coming on the show and stuff like that,
right,
whenever she didn't want to. But she came on the Oprah Winfrey Show to like, in order to do the face reveal.
Yeah.
Because people were trying to see her and she didn't want to be seen.
Yeah.
And she looks nearly, not totally, but nearly identical to the older version of the sister in the sitcom in Nope.
Who also survives the Gordy incident, but after she was brutally beaten.
Yeah. And you also see her in the trailer. And that's like one of like the main like kind of haunting images of the trailer is like the like her with the veil and like you can't see her face.
Because it's hard to understand that image out of context.
Yes.
But like when you put it in the context of the rest of the film, it plays itself a lot more of like, oh, Jupe is really messed up. How he's trying to really like
squeeze
exploit
out of this,
everything that he can, even those like this woman is also wearing a sweater that is a picture of herself when she was a teenager.
Yes,
like in this, it's so demented,
so messed up. Absolutely. Now, all the way down to her veil was the exact same, and her hat was the exact same as the woman in real life was. But the things that are different about the woman in real life that they're kind of using as inspiration and the woman in Nope are actually kind of very interesting and key details, like the shirt, like the color. In real life, I believe it was brown or gray, and in the movie, as you might remember, it was pink. Yeah. And she also has her like herself on her shirt and everything.
Correct.
And the few minor differences between their faces and whatnot, you can tell that the biggest differences that Jordan Peele really hearkened on is all of the things that make this woman in Nope a child, as if she like froze in time.
Yeah.
Like as if like that was the most important thing that ever happened in her life and she's stuck in that moment.
Yeah.
Whereas this other woman tries actively to move on in several ways in real life, but it's kind of interesting just like thinking about that. Right. And yeah, and like, I mean, of course, I really wish that they would have gone into that more because I really liked the Gordy storyline.
Oh, sure. Listen. Okay, fine. In a vacuum, I like the Gordy storyline, but don't you think it's a little bit of an issue that we're still talking about the Gordy storyline when that was a weird breath. When the movie is not about that at all,
Yeah.
I sounded
Yeah.
like a freaking anteater, just like eating dinner. Just that's
Yeah.
what that breath
It was a little bit of a snort. It was like a backward snort.
Yeah, that was
Reverse.
God, that was
Anyways.
disgusting. I'm so sorry.
I can't even
but like,
recreate it.
don't you think it's an issue that we're still talking about
Yeah.
Gordy? That
Yeah.
we're not talking more about the UFO? That we're not talking more about OJ and Emerald? Like,
I agree.
And so, I mean, first of all, that speaks to the haunting imagery that is like the Gordy thing.
Yeah.
And maybe
All every image associated with that storyline.
and maybe because like
The
that
shoe.
that feels
Oh.
more familiar. Yes, there's a shoe just standing perfectly on the heel, and Droop has it in his hidden room as well. What's
There were
up?
some people that were talking about the shoe as if to say like that was a clever way of saying that like with Steven Yeun's character that they were just like waiting for the shoe to drop, and I was like, okay, that seems out of the way. I don't think that's it. The thing that I kept thinking of during the movie, and even still after the movie, I agree with a little bit, is that do you remember the moment in the movie where the bug, I believe it was like a
praying mantis, yeah.
a praying mantis, was on the camera, right?
Yeah. And for the perfect amount of time where the camera would have been looking at the UFO,
Exactly.
swallowing the fake horse and I think a real horse.
Between that, the moment with the praying mantis, and the moments with the horses where they start running towards it and they know like where to go and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It made me feel like the alien
Yeah.
had, I mean, again, we have no idea where it's from, so but just alien had some sort of control of some sort over the animals.
Because it felt. Because the thing is about the praying mantis is that felt way too convenient
Exactly.
of like a plot device, you know?
And it felt like they could either make it a convenient plot device or make it a specific choice. And I felt like in the way that they handled it, it was a specific choice, which made me feel like the alien was able to, not necessarily like mind control, but influence at least the animal to do that, right?
It's so it felt maybe perhaps, I think this is part of it, right? After seeing Get Out and Us, we trust that it's going to be a specific choice, but after having seen the film, I don't feel like that's a specific choice. Or like if it is a specific choice to have it just be coincidental, you know, which feels a little bit lazy.
I kind of wish that the way they would have brought it back around is that, and I think there was an opportunity to do this. What if they would have tied the alien in some way into the Gordy storyline, and that the alien had some sort of influence over Gordy's violent tendencies? One, two, his specific and like gentle nature with the kid for not exploiting him and his spectacle, because that was the problem with the alien. And three, all of the supernatural qualities of the Gordy storyline. Mainly and foremost, the shoe. The shoe was so strange to me that I was like, there must be something supernatural happening with that shoe.
I think the shoe
and
was
that's whenever
just.
I started.
But I think the shoe was just supposed to be this like haunting imagery, you know, of just like it being able to perfectly
but
be there.
it felt so supernatural and so impossible that it felt weird that it was.
Is
there.
it weird that I was more okay with the shoe than I was the praying mantis?
For me, yes.
Yeah,
For me, yes, that is strange to me.
fair enough.
Because the praying mantis, like I've seen praying mantises do that, but I've never seen a shoe do that.
Well, but then there was
Is
also
why.
the line of like, you know, we haven't seen a praying mantis in a while. You know, I don't know.
Oh,
Like it
okay,
just
sure.
felt like convenient for that thing to show up in order
Yeah.
to like
But
delay
whenever
the events
they
of the
say,
plot.
whenever they say, because I remember that line, whenever they say that about the not seeing praying mantises in a while, my instant thought is, the alien summoned it.
And that's what I thought too at first.
Okay.
But then watching the rest of the film, like,
Yeah.
meh.
But I will say on that token, kind of
Sure.
with what you're saying, one of my favorite parts about Jordan Peele is that there's kind of a lore to him and his process and how attached he is. And that after he made Get Out, he went to, I believe it was UCLA, and gave a lecture, and then he was interviewed and like given like a Q&A and stuff.
Yep.
And the Q&A though was largely like audience-based questions where the students asked him questions. And it's a really, really interesting like hour of Q&A, because every question they ask is implying that he has made a masterpiece and that he has made every decision with absolute care.
Yeah.
And every time that someone asks him those types of questions, he responds as if he did it on an accident.
Yeah. which is
It's so funny.
well, I mean, but like that happens, dude. That happens.
absolutely
Not
happens.
every single
But
thing is absolutely meticulous.
specifically
but
with
just,
Get Out.
but sometimes, oh, sure.
You know it's a bit.
What?
You know that him doing that, maybe not all of it, but you know that it's a bit because
Oh, sure. Jordan Peele's a fantastic comedian as well.
yeah, also that it's like there's no way that all those things accidentally came together in such a perfect way to deliver that message so eloquently.
Well,
You must have known.
I mean, but like I'm not sure if that thought is pervasive throughout every little single frame. You know,
Right,
like
absolutely.
it's probably like in just much more like smaller details, right? Like, oh, this would probably work better. Oh, this would probably work better. Like you're probably like, overall you're looking at the big picture, of course, because you have to. But I'm hard pressed to think that like thinking about every single little thing at all times.
But I think that's what's so genius about how Jordan Peele set himself up with his whole career in stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Not stand-up, with sketch comedy, and as an actor and whatnot, and also in these interviews, and especially that Q&A at UCLA, is that now we don't know. You know what I mean? We have no idea if it was intentional or not. Like, he's off the hook for anything good or bad about the movie.
Look,
which is hilarious
I think
to me.
a good way to approach it is to assume everything is
Was
intentional,
intentional, sure.
until the writer's like, no, it actually just worked out like that. So I realize I just flip-flopped on my take. I'm gonna have to once again
That's okay.
re-examine
That's
this.
okay. But I think I agree that there is definitely a
I guess
you should
I'm
respect
not
him
trying.
enough.
What I'm trying to do, I'm not trying. What? I'm not dismissing the possibility of things working out pretty well in terms of structure or story.
But I think that's also what contributes to why I'm so fascinated by him and his career, and why I admire him so much is because he has set himself up in such a way that I do trust that everything was intentional.
Yeah.
Even though he is like made a joke out of it's not. I do for some reason still totally believe that everything that he's doing is for a purpose.
Well, yeah.
And that he's secretly way smarter than the rest of us.
Yeah.
And that
Secretly.
everyone on the planet is just like a little bit dumber than Jordan Peele. And he has done very little in giving me that opinion, but for some reason I think that. And I think it's because of the careful way that he has released Get Out at the time that he did, in the way that he did, Us in the time that he did, in the way that he did, and now Nope. I think that he has chronicled himself in a very intelligent way. And I'm very excited to see what comes next, as well as the way that he cast this movie and handled it so carefully there. Now, I would like to get your take on, because you said that every moment Keke Palmer was on screen, he was electric.
Absolutely electric. I loved Keke Palmer.
And there was a lot of detail to Dan Kaluuya and Keke Palmer together.
Yeah. Well, and their relationship for the most part was really well fleshed out, and they were listening to each other, responding to each other really well. They were fantastic acting partners. Like it's a pretty textbook sort of, give and take when it comes to performances in a film, right? And it's not like the best example ever, but it's a damn good one.
Yeah.
And it's like they celebrate the victories together. They listen to each other really well. When someone does something that the other person doesn't like, they take it and aikido it into something else. It's really, really well done. And so, of course, like, I'm going to find every moment Keke Palmer is in to be electric, because that's just how her character is, right? To be that much more electric person, while Daniel Kaluuya's character is much more reserved, not necessarily laid back, but it's like covering, his heart is covering his sleeve. The other way around.
Sleeve is covering his heart. That must be a messy sleeve. Okay. Yeah. No, continue.
So that dynamic works really well in tandem, and then you add those two great performances on top of one another, and so it's a treat. It's an absolute treat.
Now, this is a question that we bring up sometimes on the pod. Is Sir Danny, are there any steals or reminders in that whenever you're watching this, was there anything that you saw that you were either like, oh, I gotta steal that, or things that you were like, man, they're doing this so well, I totally forgot that I really need to be implementing this more in my craft?
It's really interesting to look at their relationship, and they're not estranged, but it's like maybe 2 or 3 tiers below that, right? From one another, these characters. But you can still tell that the love is there. And so to have sort of love be the undercurrent for all of their actions with each other, even though the both of them drive each other absolutely crazy, to have love be the undercurrent adds a lot of richness to that entire relationship and in turn to themselves as characters. So by the end of the film, you're absolutely rooting for them, in their entirety, right? Like, when that bombastic music is playing and OJ is riding the horse trying to attract Jean Jacket, and he releases the parachute and it's going, and then Emerald later on, does the Akira bike stop and just and then unlatches, the giant inflatable jupe, winking balloon. My goodness, like you're rooting for those characters in the moments, but and how you build up to that, right, is to have these characters really breathe and interact and listen and love each other. Right? Because if you are going to have a character that is just an absolute a-hole with very little redeeming qualities, it's going to be difficult to actually like them or root for them. But when you have love very simply just be the undercurrent for a lot of the actions that they have towards each other and plays into their respective objectives, and it makes it so much better. It makes it so much better.
That's a really interesting point. I don't often think about the difference between active love and passive love. Oftentimes, like, love is just love, and you just kind of lump it into one thing. But you're right. The way they are familiar with each other, but not actively loving on each other is really interesting.
Yeah, that passive love only becomes active here and there in the third act. That's it. That's it.
But you're right. It's still present the entire time. That's
absolutely present because they'll still do things for each other, or like say things to each other, or even look at each other in like a certain way that like indicates, the history of their relationship, right? That even though it's strenuous a little bit, it's not completely gone, which gives way also for the rest of the story, right? And how they help each other out. That's a big thing that absolutely resonated with me. Well, I mean, are you bringing this question up because you have a particular thing to steal?
I do, but there was not necessarily something that I was trying to elicit. But I for me personally, I think it comes down to whenever I'm watching Jordan Peele, so it's really hard for me not to be focusing on Jordan Peele, which is maybe like one of the faults of a lot of his movies is that I'm thinking a lot about the way he's doing it rather than the actors, which I shouldn't be, because I'm enamored by him for some reason.
I was really, for me in this film, I was deeply involved with the plot because I guess there's something about mysteries that I'm just like, I just so badly want to know what's going to happen. And I know, like, and what's exciting is like, I know I will get answers. And so that makes it more exciting. So I'm like, when are these answers going to happen? And what are these answers going to be? So naturally, I'm always going to be on the edge of my seat. But then in turn, I'm thinking a lot less about like the directorial job in this film.
Have you ever seen Knives Out?
Yeah, I love Knives Out.
Yeah, that's like the quintessential modern movie mystery, murder mystery. Now
whodunit?
It
is. I mean, it is a whodunit.
But I think the thing that I would steal is that Jordan Peele doesn't operate by rules, specifically in his process, but also just in the way that he makes stuff. So, for instance, I think that in like listening to a lot of his analysis after the movie came out and podcasts with him and stuff like that, it's interesting hearing about how if something's not working in terms of like the process, whenever they're working on set, if something's not working, that he wrote the script so he can change it. And like there are plenty of edits still happening during the process, or that he would just like allow everyone full freedom, and that if
like full freedom as in like input.
Yes, and like anyone can do anything at any time. And the only reason that someone doesn't do something is because either they don't have a good enough reason. That's actually really it. That's really it, because there's not a good enough reason for it, and no one is being shut down because of some made up rule. And I am so bad about that because I like structure. Maybe it's because of my vast experience in only education for most of my life.
Yeah.
But I think that has something to do with it.
Mac, did this camera just shut off?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, buddy. That's 2 points for you.
Yeah.
Well, we may as well just keep going keep on trucking. But you may as well pull out that penalty board. I think now you're in the lead. I think now with 1 point ahead of me. We'll see who wears a costume at the very end. No, actually, we're tied. Look at that. Impressive. But sorry, Mac. It's 2 points for you, my friend.
Go ahead. What are you saying?
No, I actually can't remember what I'm saying. This is the issue sometimes of doing this podcast right after you get off of work.
Is just fried.
You're exhausted. You're fried. You're absolutely
No,
fried. But Jordan Peele is a director. I think
Yes.
part of it has to do probably. This is just a theory, hypothesis, perhaps a thought.
His background
in sketch comedy and
Absolutely.
just like very, very fluid. This is just assumptions
With
and presumptions,
little limits.
but very, very fluid sort of building, right? Building the plane while it's in midair, right?
Yeah.
And so allowing
That's a good
when
way of
he's
putting it.
also directing and writing to allow that for other individuals like who are involved in that process as well to give a hand on the plane that's being built in midair, but allows for like flexibility of the moment and the ability to craft something that's beautiful, that's in the moment, right? Instead of being so like hard ass, I guess, for lack of a better term, on something that like maybe it's not good right now. Maybe when you wrote it, maybe the moment that you wrote it, it sounded really good in your head, and the moment you're saying it out loud, maybe it's not landing the way that you thought it would. And it's okay if somebody else has a better idea.
Right.
I don't know. And it's like something as simple as like, I've always, of course, me, the actor apologist, I've always been a proponent of something
You
like
are.
as small as like ad-libbing, right? Just adding your own little like lines or snippets or replies or like reactions, even if they're like small, particularly if they're small, right? But to like breathe life into the character that you're being, but it's like, it's the reality of the moment that you're living in. And I find that to be enriching. And so the fact that, like, he allows the plane to be built in midair and, like, living in the moment in the creation of such an art is enriching for me to hear. And once again, I think that hard work shows in this film, right? And it still makes it an absolute treat to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Mr. Lovell,
Yeah.
do you have any other thoughts on Nope?
Gold medal, Keith David. There, I said it. It's bias. Otis Haywood Sr., who passes away at the very beginning of the
He has
film.
one scene.
Oh, my God. No. This is... I love him. And you know why? It's because it's Keith David. Respect
What's
to Keith
Keith David
David. Justice
from?
for Keith David. Keith David has one of the best voices in all of Hollywood in the history of man. I love his voice. He's... I best know him as the Arbiter in the Halo series, which is so specific, but
Danny.
I love Keith
That's
David's
so
performance.
random.
He's a character in The Nice Guys, starring Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe. He's in that
Oh.
film. He's Dr. Facilier in The Princess and the Frog. Fun fact. He
He
has friends on the other side.
Oh, he's that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and he has such a distinct voice that I can hear. It's one of those voices I can hear, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Keith David. I love Keith David. And the moment I shit you not, Mac, the moment I heard his first line, I'm like, oh my God, is that Keith David?
Really?
And it was, and it made me so happy. And then he fucking died!
Immediately.
almost
Now,
immediately. I was so upset.
Would you say that Keith David is at the level of Tony Leung in that just the moment he's on screen, it's a gold medal? Just because he is?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, that's fine. I respect it. I can respect that. Sure. Good for you. I think my gold medal is pretty evident. I hate to say it because I feel like it's there. It's
Gordy.
It's Gordy, man. No, it's Jordan. It's got to be Jordan, man.
Yeah.
Jordan just did such a good job. Was clear as day. Knew what he was after, and it was very respectable. And I really appreciate him for what he was.
Is the
able to do.
pacing of this film good, by the way?
I think so.
Yeah. Did it ever feel slow
No,
to you?
for me.
Okay.
I was with it the whole time.
Yeah.
I think it's because Also, whenever they had that those kids come in with the masks, that,
Yeah.
made you think it was
freaked
aliens.
me out, dude.
One, it freaked me out, and it was a great horror moment. But two, I was strapped in for that movie. I was ready for whatever that movie was about to be.
Yeah.
And then it ended up
And
not
then
being
it
a
was
movie.
just kids, and it was a great bait
And a
switch.
2-minute warning.
What happened?
It's just funny the aggression in which we do it now.
Yeah.
Making sure we're keeping each other. I want to fourth point today. Now, Mr. Daniel Lavelle. So we have our gold medals on the table. Final review of Nope.
It's really good. I like it more than Us because honestly, it's a much more fun watch than
Sure.
Us. Is it a better movie than Get Out? Not entirely sure. But there's no other movie like Get Out, so it's apples and oranges in that case. However, it's a great sci-fi horror thriller film. I'd watch it again, probably not anytime soon, I'm not going to say it's forgettable, but it's not as memorable as I hoped it would be, but I think that's partially because of the experience that I had watching it being in a mostly empty movie theater with like nobody else.
Sure.
However, still very much so enjoyed it. Kaluuya and Palmer are fantastic in it, and I enjoy watching them. And it's a great film, and I look forward to Jordan Peele's next piece. Mac, thoughts?
I thought it was great. I think that it's definitely worth a watch. It's definitely worth a think. After you watch it, you should definitely pay it enough respect to really ponder it, let it marinate. I think that it's very standalone, and that I think that your preference to it in comparison to Get Out and Us is just a matter more of genre and taste than it is a matter of excellence, because I think all of them definitely stand alone in their absolute genius. Danny, what are we reviewing next week?
So now we
Next
are
time.
doing this sort of like basis where Mac and I will agree beforehand what we'll watch for the next time, and we'll probably be joined by a guest or two for this next episode, but we are watching the recently released on Hulu television show starring Jeremy Allen White, and it's
FX
titled
presents
The Bear.